Alright, digital world, welcome back once again to another episode of Spliced In Later. And as promised from last week, we are basically kicking things off for 2023 straight away with a movie review. But apologies in advance for this movie review because I don't know who can actually see it at this point in time. I got to see it here in Australia. It has been officially released in movie theaters, so it is currently playing. I don't imagine for very long. It's a January movie. You cycle through a bunch of different movies in January that all get crushed by Avatar and Puss in Boots. So if you want to see it and you're here in Australia, I think you have a very limited time to go see it. That being said, it hasn't officially been released yet. As I say that, I just remembered that I went to an advanced screening to see it. It is officially being released on Thursday, so you've got some time. But I don't know where else in the world it is being released. I don't think it's been released in America yet. I don't know if there are plans to release it in America. I'm sure it'll be released in England because it is an English movie. But I don't know if it will be released in theaters or on selective streaming services. My theater experience sucked, so I wish it had been released on streaming so I could have watched it at home in the comfort of my own lounge room. For once, though, it was not the fault of anybody who went to see the movie with me. There was just this stupid thing. I guess the fire alarm was going off in the mall that I was watching this movie in. I couldn't hear the fire alarm, but I could definitely hear the guy over the loudspeaker telling everybody that there had been an alarm and the fire warden was currently investigating it. And he had to interrupt the movie 4 times to loudly announce that everything was fine and not to panic, even though we weren't panicking. And he came in at the climax of the movie too. There was a point where everybody was wrapping up and I'm like, I don't have any idea what anybody just said there because I've just heard that there is no fire. Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyway, that's a little bit of a rant there. We'll get right into it. The movie that I'm reviewing for you today, the first movie for 2023, currently the first and only movie on my top 10 movies of 2023, is Operation Fortune, Ruse de Guerre. This is a new movie directed by Guy Ritchie, one of my favorite directors. If you're a frequent listener here on Spliced In Later, you know we talk about Guy Ritchie films quite often. And starring Jason Statham, Aubrey Plaza, Carrie Elwes, Bugsy Malone, Josh Hartnett, and the lovable Hugh Grant. A bit of unpacking for this movie. The reason why it's currently a bit vague as to where in the world you can see it. This movie was supposed to come out just under a year ago. It was supposed to come out for March 2022. And there was a bit of a mystery around it. It was kind of like a Knives Out mystery because literally less than 2 weeks out from when it was supposed to be released, it was suddenly yanked, like unceremoniously, yanked from every coming soon all across the world. Right up before it, Guy Ritchie, he doesn't use Instagram that much, but he was using his Instagram to say that this movie was coming. All of the entertainment articles were releasing their interviews with the cast. Everybody was getting ready to watch this movie, and then it was taken away. And normally when something like that happens, you get the big update about due to circumstances involving clashing with other movies or rights issues or whatever, they cannot release the movie at that time, so we will instead reschedule it for 6 months from now, or even a week from now, or a whole year from now. There's always it's not coming out now, you have to wait till this point. This movie didn't have that. Operation Fortune, Ruse de Guerre, basically just disappeared overnight. No one knew where it had gone. Nobody knew why. There was no talk of when it was going to be re-released again. The director, Guy Ritchie, all the actors basically stopped talking about it and moved on to advertising other stuff. And it's only recently that we sort of get the idea of what happened. Because basically, if you were living under a rock and you don't know, Russia invaded Ukraine, and that conflict is still going on. Whether you want to know it or not, it is still going on. It frustrates me that in the first month of the invasion, it was all over Hollywood. Everybody was talking about what a travesty it is. But 12 months later, I guess people care, but they don't care. They don't care enough to keep talking about it. It's not news anymore. We've moved on to whatever variant of COVID is about to break out of China. It's whatever terrible news sells the most at the moment. So the Russian-Ukraine conflict, I guess, doesn't serve as much. But there were, at the time, the official reason finally was revealed that there are bad guys in this movie that are Ukrainian, of Ukrainian descent. And the powers that be, quite rightly, probably didn't think it was appropriate or acceptable to release a movie that painted Ukrainian people in a negative light right when their homes are being utterly bombarded and annihilated by Russian dickheads. So that's the official reason. We're getting to a point now, I don't know why. As I said, it may be that because people aren't as shocked by the conflict as they were at the start, that now it's like, yeah, okay, we can release it now, I guess, it's fine. But there must still be some issues about where they can release it and how it's being perceived, which is why there's the confusion as to who can see it and when and how. Which, interestingly, made me pretty keen to watch it when it finally came out. Not because I was really excited for it or anything, but it's kind of like bloody Moby Dick's White Whale. You're aware of this movie. I was aware of Operation Fortune. I was aware of who directed it, that it was one of my favorite directors. I was aware of the cast, that it had a good cast. The one trailer I had seen before it disappeared into the ether looked pretty awesome. So it stuck on my list that I write at the start of the year of all the movies I want to see, as I cross them off as I watch them. Because Operation Fortune was the first movie off the rank that year and it didn't come out, it just sat there at the top. I didn't cross it out. I didn't want to cross it out until it was confirmed that it wouldn't come out that year. And month after month, I'd Google the name just to see if a new release date had popped in or anything like that. And nothing. There was never any updates. There was no information. It was kind of crazy. So all of a sudden, though, I was I was looking at Hoyts to see when the official release in Australia for Ant-Man 3 is. And I saw, get your tickets for Operation Fortune, Ruse de Guerre. Come see it next week. And I'm like, oh my God, are you serious? I have to see that immediately. And I have to talk about it, whether it's good or not. I just need to see it. Much like whoever it was that was hunting Moby Dick. I'm sure all the people who read books will be mad that I don't remember that. But it is the white whale. You don't really get the satisfaction of killing the whale. It may not be the experience you want, but at least you can know Moby Dick dead. Operation Fortune, scene. So it is a new Guy Ritchie film, but it's not necessarily a Guy Ritchie film, really. As back in the early days of this podcast, I talked about Guy Ritchie a lot. I had one friend who I used to hang out with all the time. Sadly, I don't really anymore. But our favorite things to talk about were Guy Ritchie movies. He had actually got me in to the early Guy Ritchie movies, the Snatch, Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, Rock and Roller, that sort of thing. Guy Ritchie is a British director and he has a very unique style when it comes to his directing, much like Quentin Tarantino and Christopher Nolan. He always tells story, well, not always now, but his most successful stuff is when he does these movies about British gangsters and British crime, and it has really snappy dialogue and really interesting characters that twist and turn in these murder mystery stories that impact people, some in large ways, some in small ways. There's always like a heroic group of characters who are the less bad of everyone involved, who are caught in situations way over their heads, and they have to figure out how to get out of it. And Guy Ritchie, much like Tarantino, has his regular forte of actors. So a lot of Guy Ritchie films will have Jason Statham and Jason Fleming and Stephen Graham, Vinnie Jones, Hugh Grant as well in his most recent stuff too. So I really look forward to those movies because they're fun. There's always entertainment to be had with a Guy Ritchie style British gangster film. You're quite likely to laugh. There'll be moments where you will laugh but feel like you shouldn't laugh. There will be twists that will surprise you. There'll be action that'll knock your socks off. And then you'll walk out going, that was fun. That was a good, fun adventure at the movies. So the last Guy Ritchie style Guy Ritchie movie that came out was The Gentleman back in 2019. So one of my very first reviews was about The Gentleman. And it was pretty good. I really liked that one. But at the same time, Ritchie's also gone out. I wouldn't say he's gone out of his comfort zone. He's doing different things. He's doing that thing where sort of indie film directors are snatched up by Hollywood and given the task of directing more big budget Hollywood style films. A prime example of that right at the moment is Taika Waititi. Taika Waititi was this really talented director of basically New Zealand films who made some really good stuff, and then they gave him a chance and he scored big with Thor Ragnarok, and now he's either doing the little stuff or he's doing really big stuff. It's like one for you, one for me sort of thing. But Taika Waititi does not have a 100% success rate when it comes to the big blockbuster stuff. Case in point, the Thor Love and Thunder was not received as you would expect from Taika Waititi at that point in his career. You'd think it would be a slam dunk for him, but not really. So Guy Ritchie is one of those examples. He has done other movies in a Hollywood style sense that have really varied in terms of quality and in terms of critical receival. His style is still sort of in his movies, but it's whether it translates to the genre that he's trying to do. Either it comes off really, really, really good, like The Man from U.N.C.L.E., which I thought was a really cool movie that perfectly put Guy Ritchie's style into that Man from U.N.C.L.E. lore from the TV shows. He hits somewhere in the middle, which is just a solid film, but nothing truly special. Something like Wrath of Man, which came out in 2021, more of a twisty mystery style action, but without the British dialogue that he's normally famous for. I really liked Wrath of Man, but it wasn't pure Ritchie. Or it can be a bit of a mess, such as the 2019 live action Aladdin, which had some good performances, some interesting directions, some okay songs, but for the most part just fell flat in terms of tone and even reason for existing, I suppose. So much so that when you go and see a Guy Ritchie film now and it's not his style, if you know it's going to be something different, you're not exactly sure what to get. Case in point, Operation Fortune Ruse de Guerre, from the outset and for all intents and purposes, it's kind of like a British Mission Impossible, an action-style film involving a group of characters working for an organization, a security government operation, something like that, who have been tasked with an impossible mission to get something before the bad guys get it, which could mean global catastrophe for the world if they don't succeed. Statham plays Orson Fortune, who's this very suave, unstoppable British agent who is never once overwhelmed by the situation he has to go up against. He's got attitude. He's got the usual Statham swagger. His handler, Carrie Elwes, which I was really excited to see him back because I haven't seen him in much at all in the last few years. And then he's got his sidekicks, Aubrey Plaza as the newest member of their team, a sassy computer hacker, Bugsy Malone as his right-hand man, and then also roping in Josh Hartnett as a Hollywood actor who they need as part of their cover to infiltrate the compound of an arms dealer, the arms dealer played by Hugh Grant in a very scene-chewing role, very reminiscent of how he was in The Gentleman, to stop this briefcase that they have to get, that even the government that sent them after it, they don't exactly know what it is that's been stolen. All they know it's bad, and they have to get it, competing against other rival faction security teams who want to get it, whether it's for honorable reasons or dishonorable reasons, to keep one step ahead of Hugh Grant and his associates, and to stop the world from being plunged into chaos. Now, Operation Fortune, Ruse de Guerre, I have to look up right now as I'm talking to you, because I realized, as a good reviewer should do, they should look up their homework to know what Ruse de Guerre means. And I didn't do that, so I'm going to do that now. Apparently, Ruse de Guerre, literally translated as ruse of war, is a term generally understood by ruse of war. Okay, whatever. Military deception against one's opponent, or acts against one's opponent by creative, clever, unorthodox means. So if I'm looking at that and thinking about the movie that I saw, I'd have to say it's the second one. Carrie Elwes is often saying Ruse de Guerre is a response to a crazy plan or something, thinking outside the box. So that's what I have to assume is what was meant. I don't think it means the art of war, because it doesn't really feel like that to me. All right, so the movie's good. I liked it. I thought it was a fun time. I didn't think it was very good, but it wasn't terrible. It's just under Wrath of Man, I think, in terms of where Guy Ritchie's standing of films that aren't his usual repartee come from. For the most part, everybody's performances are great, and it's really enjoyable to watch them. Jason Statham is fun to watch. He will never go down in history as a incredibly talented actor with incredible range, because he just doesn't have it. but he doesn't need it. It works for him. In the same way that Dwayne Johnson is always this charming, friendly beam of light person that you see on the screen, Jason Statham is always grumpy, deadly, British, no smiling, lethal assassin. It works for him, and it's fun to watch him do it, regardless if you always expect him to be like that. Maybe one day he'll do something different, but for now it works for him, and I think it's pretty good. Other standout performances, Carrie Elwes as his handler is quite funny. I was watching him, hearing him speak, and remembering The Princess Bride and Robin Hood Men in Tights. He's that shady government operative who is clearly on Orson Fortune's side and wants to help his team, but he's playing with more cards in his deck than everybody else. He knows things that others don't. He's 2 steps ahead. He's constantly thinking about how the government will come off in their escapades and how much money they need to spend. So shady bureaucrat sort of character, but it worked for him, which was great too. Aubrey Plaza was great because Aubrey Plaza always works when she's allowed to do her comedy style of her deadpan humor. There are some instances where it felt a bit off, and I feel I could tell from her performance that I don't think she thought what she was saying was particularly funny, but she still had to sell it. But for me, the standout performance was Bugsy Malone. He plays a very restrained side character who doesn't steal the screen from everybody, but he's got some real funny quirks, some great scenes. His comedy timing was spot on, and I just really enjoyed his character, his presence, which was pretty great. Josh Hartnett's Hollywood guy, the fish out of water, is fine, but I felt like he was a bit too intense. And Hugh Grant's funny. I enjoyed watching him. He worked really well with what he was doing. When you wanted him to laugh, when he wanted you to laugh at what he was doing, it worked. When you wanted to be disturbed by what he was saying, it worked too. Unfortunately for me, his portrayal of his character is pretty much lockstep with the character he portrayed in The Gentleman, this silly British guy with a silly voice and strange mannerisms. They are exactly the same. So it pulls me out of it to be like, because it's not the same character, it's just Hugh Grant doing the same thing again in another Guy Ritchie movie. And it's kind of the opposite, where it works for Jason Statham because he does the same thing all the time. Hugh Grant doing one particular thing twice apparently is a problem for me. So there you go. I think I'm a bit of a hypocrite. Great action scenes though. Some really good globe-trotting spy sort of things where they have to sneak into parties and track bad guys and have fights on top of buildings and gunfights and black ops and all of that stuff. It makes for real entertaining fun. And the movie kicks off as soon as it goes. That's a good thing about Guy Ritchie too, is he never stalls. He never spends a majority of the movie at the start just spinning his wheels before getting to the point. From the moment the movie starts and you've got Carrie Elwes striding very, very, very powerfully down a hall because his boots are in lockstep with the music that's playing, you straight away jump into, here's Orson Fortune, here's his team, he's got to get this thing, go, 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 go. And from there, it does not let up. And I think that's good because pacing-wise, when you realize there's not a lot of suspense or threat to these characters, moving at a quick pace doesn't give you the chance to really think about it. So moving from set piece to set piece and action to action is really entertaining. I had a lot of good time with that. There are other bad guys in here and other characters that aren't Hugh Grant, but they're not portrayed in any particular way that stands out to me to a point where I can even remember them and talk about to you now. Some twists, there are twists in here, don't really make a lot of sense unless you're suspending your disbelief and not paying that much attention. And I will say that because the movie starts straight off the bat, it does sort of end straight off the bat too. You get to a point where I guess the movie's over and the credits start rolling, and it does take you by surprise to go, oh geez, all right, the movie's over. That was the climax. Okay, cool. Which leads me to one big problem I have with the movie, is that there is no suspense. There is no danger. Orson Fortune, Jason Statham's character, all of his team, they are very good at their job, but they're so good to a point that not once do you ever think they're in danger. They're never ever in over their heads. No one ever pulls the rug out from under them. They never have to deal with a surprise that's come up that requires really on the spot thinking. Everything goes exactly as planned. Jason Statham is always going to be tougher than the guy he's up against. He's never going to be knocked down. Aubrey Plaza will always crack the computer code. Even when they're running away from bad guys, all they have to do is turn around and shoot, and the bad guys just go flying because these guys are unstoppable. Now that's fine. That's fun. You could say the same thing for the American Mission Impossibles with Tom Cruise. The difference between the two is that there's always a moment in the Mission Impossible movies where somebody gets the jump on Ethan Hunt, or a plan doesn't go as planned and they have to quickly improvise to get out of it, or they really have to run for it before they're exposed. You don't have any of that in here, so there's never a sense of danger. You're never sitting there going, oh my god, I don't know if Jason Statham's going to make it out of this one. He is going to make it out. There's never a chance he's not going to, and he never makes you think that he is not going to. So when you take that suspense or that threat or that sort of excitement out of the movie, because everybody has just got, I wouldn't say plot armor, but I don't know, there's an old Power Rangers episode where the Power Rangers got metallic armor, and whenever they had the metallic armor on, literally nothing could touch them and they were unstoppable. Everybody in Operation Fortune has metallic armor as a sense. Right up until the end, Jason Statham barely breaks a sweat taking out the bad guys and saving the day. So that pulls you out because you're never really sucked into the movie, because you never do feel like anything's going to go badly. That's my only real flaw with the movie. That's a big flaw, I think. It really stood out to me while I was watching it, and as I've gone away and thought about it, like, yeah, that all they needed was just one scene to just be like, okay, yeah, maybe they're in a bit over their heads. Maybe they will not save the day, but they don't have that, unfortunately. But look, it's January, right? As long as a movie in January doesn't suck balls, it's a good movie. Yes, this movie was supposed to come out in March last year, so maybe it's not technically a January movie, but it is the only movie that I plan to see this month. And to start 2023 off with, it's a solid movie. It was a good time. I had a good time for sure. I'd give Operation Fortune, Ruse de Guerre, a 7 out of 10. A good direction on Guy Ritchie's part that uses a few of his quirks and a few of his mannerisms, not to the extent I would like, but he doesn't fall apart trying to do something he has no business doing, like Aladdin. Jason Statham, Aubrey Plaza, Bugsy Malone, everybody in the movie does a really good job. Some more than others. The action is exciting, the banter is exciting, but we just need a little bit more sense of threat or danger, some sort of belief that our characters are not unstoppable gods to really, really hook me into this movie more than it actually did. There you are. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed. If you do get a chance to see this movie, I recommend it. I don't know if you can. I don't know how you can. If you're here in Australia and you're looking for something to do this weekend, it will officially be released, so why not go check it out? If you're anywhere else in the world, I don't know. Maybe it's on Apple TV++, or Vought++, or whatever 1,000 streaming services are out there. I'm sure there will be a way for you to watch it somehow, hopefully legally. But you never know. You do what you have to see Jason Statham in action. I'll be back next week for a regular episode, I believe. I don't think I'll be seeing any more new movies until Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania hits in February. But you never know. Something could come out that surprises me that I end up seeing. Otherwise, we'll just have to come up with other stuff to talk to you about. But until then, I love and appreciate you all as always. Thank you very much for listening to me. As always, it's been a treat. And I will catch you on the next Spliced In Later. Adios, muchachos. I'll catch you next time.